fast forwarding, a couple of months later, I was going to this community center, which is mosque. That's just another name, right? That some of them actually use for the mosques, just so the government would not come down on them. So I was going there every Friday, and I was trying to be a good Muslim, a good, Quran believing Muslim who would follow Sharia law like he should. And so I went there one night. I was looking for a job. It was Ramadan, and I came across the Imam's brother, and I asked him if he had a job for me because I was, also in a tough financial situation. I was trying to help my mom out. Mind you, the guy was still there, but he wasn't helping tremendously. So I was like, I had to work, the extra shift to support my mom and, my sisters. And so he goes like, yeah, absolutely. Listen, I've got a restaurant downtown Montreal, right? If you want to come and work, feel free to come in and try it out, for a night. So I did actually go there a couple of days later, and I remember it was Ramadan. It was the month of October back then, right? If you know anything about Ramadan, every year it kind of shifts like 10 days, right? Because they're always basing it, in virtue of the lunar calendar, right? So, and since, the moon does, I don't know how to explain it, but, the moon actually has, I guess, like travels differently every year, right? So sometimes it's kind of a 10-day, like difference, right? But back then it was like cold, it was in October, it was chilly. And I remember I was looking for I was sorry, I was going there because I had been asked to actually go and try out that job. It was a restaurant. It was in mid-October. So I go there and I walked into the restaurant. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening, if I'm not mistaken. So I stand there, right? They're teaching me how to service the clients, but there was hardly anybody in that restaurant that night, except for two clients that were sitting there, right, in the kitchen, not in the kitchen, but in the where they had the tables set up. And so I was basically behind a counter, and I was somebody was teaching me how to service the clients, teaching me the menu, how to prepare, the food and what have you, right? And so at some point, my boss actually comes up to me. He was praying, right, and that would be the same guy that hired me, the imam's brother that I met at the mosque. He comes out from from the back store. He was praying, so he comes up to me and he goes like, "Listen, someone is about to walk in, and this guy is a Salafi Muslim, right? And whatever you do, just don't engage in any religious conversation because this guy is straight up like very radical." And because I was a Shia Muslim, I was coming from I was in a different sect than this guy. And so, the Salafi sect is, for anything, very harsh towards all the other sects or denominations of Islam, right? And they do consider like, we're not even Muslims. So he said, whatever you do, right, don't talk to him. Don't engage in any conversation because I've seen him, speak. I've seen him act, and this guy is not someone you want to confront, right? Because he's very dangerous. And believe it or not, when he walked in, the guy was tall, right? He had a big beard. He had a strange demeanor to himself, right? Looked rough. And I just said hi. He said hi back. And then he moved right into the kitchen because he had been hired to do the dishes right before the closing of the restaurant. He was hired up for, coming in just for a couple of hours a day, basically. So to make a long story short, his brother actually, comes in later, like 1 hour later, and I'm still there behind the counter, helping out, doing stuff, right? And the brother comes in and he goes, "Can I speak to that gentleman in the kitchen?" So I didn't know at first that they were brothers, right? Only to find out later that they were brothers after the entire scene. So we're getting there. But as the brother actually moves into the kitchen, he's a younger brother. He's kind of shorter than the other one, right? I hear him speaking now. From a Middle Eastern standpoint, when you hear two Moroccan talk, you suppose that they're fighting because that's just part of the way they speak. That's their dialect, right? They're very rough. It's if you know anything about the Middle Eastern dialect, it's diametrically opposed to the Moroccan or Algerian dialect, which are like African dialects. So I thought they were talking, only to find out later that the younger brother is actually coming out of the kitchen and he is protecting himself with a chair. he's walking backwards and he's basically like shielding himself with that chair, right? And he's about to turn on his heels and run away. And I'm looking at the scene, I'm going like, this could not be, right? I like it's almost like I was watching a movie, right?
Mm.
Well, and so his brother walks out after him. The older brother, of course, and he walks out with this kitchen knife, right? Like a 12-inch kitchen knife. Mind you, we had no surveillance cameras back then. This was when I was 18 years old, I think roughly, right? Might have been 19 years old. I don't know. But anyways, like along these lines, right? And so he walks out after his brother. His brother tries to run away. So he grabs his brother, right? And all of this is happening before our very eyes and before the eyes of the two ladies that were sitting there eating, having a, like a nice meal. So he grabs him as he tries to run away, and he's like he just opens up his neck with the knife. So he slit his neck open, his throat open. And so as I look there, I see the brother, the younger brother, the victim, putting his hand on his neck. At this point, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, pinch me, someone. Is this really happening? Wait a minute, like, is this actually taking place? Right? I felt like I was watching a horror movie. But just a couple of seconds later, the guy is, wobbling. He's trying to make his way out of the restaurant. He's running. He's trying to run for his life. People are screaming, but he ends up, you know, literally standing in front of me, and he ends up looking at me straight in the eyes, and like almost begging, right, for me to help him, pleading with me. And so as soon as he takes his hand off of his throat, off of his neck, blood comes out like gushing and oozing, and it's just splashing everywhere on me, on the counter, everywhere. So the guy lost half of his blood, in the restaurant, walks out, and then ends up falling headlong right on the ground outside of the restaurant. I end up actually jumping over the counter, as the other guy standing there, right, as if nothing happened, right, just murdered, his brother, like cold blood. And the guy just stood there, waiting for the cops, as if like he, did himself like a favor, did his God a favor, right? And so everybody was screaming, telling the guy to not move, but then he threatened me and the others, right, as I was actually moving out, right, to not help his brother. Otherwise, he would also analyze me. But I was already gone. I couldn't care less, right? So I took the guy outside in my arms. As I grabbed him, I, held him. I was trying to obviously like put pressure on the wound, but it was just becoming so uncontrollable that you know I couldn't do anything, right? And I couldn't even dare looking at the wound back then because it was just so like deep, right? And so the guy lost his blood in my arms, and he agonized right there. Like you would see cattle agonize, like you'd see like a bird agonize, right? The guy literally passed in my arms as people just fainting, screaming, right? As the cops were actually called to later come back. And so the rest is history. The guy was arrested, of course. We went to the cop station, and we had to stay there for about 30 hours, being asked to witness what happened, right? Give a report of what happened.